Wax Motif. What's cooking, man?
What's up, baby?
You all right?
I'm all right, man. Bit of a long day, long weekend, but
Yeah, what happened?
so I was in Birmingham, Alabama, and they basically oversold every single flight. And even with my status, the system like fucked it all up and like basically didn't let me on the first flight because they oversold it. They didn't have another flight out for me, so I was on standby for the next two flights.
Ugh,
And then I got to Dallas for my layover, and then that flight got delayed by 12 hours. So it was like over 24, like, man, probably closer to 30 hours to get home from Alabama.
that's
So
rough, man. American Airlines is like fucking everyone right now.
yeah, I was always really about them until this weekend. Like they
Yeah.
really
I had it
did some damage.
I had it 2 or 3 weekends in a row where they cancelled my flights, like completely cancelled them, like leaving
No way.
Detroit or something. And then they like it's just so annoying when you wake up and you're like, oh, your flight's been cancelled. What can we do?
Dude, the worst.
Oh
The
well.
worst. I mean, do they compensate you for shows if you miss them?
No.
Really?
I didn't miss it. I've not touched wood. Only ever missed one show because of a cancelled flight in my whole career.
And they didn't, that was their fault, and they didn't do anything about it.
No.
Damn. That's cold. I feel like you could like charge them the amount you lost.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't
oh,
know how that works though, because it's like they always just make excuses, and in their terms and conditions, they've always got their asses covered, haven't they?
yeah, probably. They're assholes.
Motherfuckers. Motherfuckers. How's life anyway? How's LA?
Life in general is good, man. Yeah. LA's cool. Um, I don't know. It's it's kind of, maybe a lot of people have left now, like since pandemic, but I don't know. It's still all right. Like,
Doing its thing.
yeah, but I don't know. It's not anything. I think now with working remotely, like it really doesn't matter where you
Do you
live.
like the
So
whole working remote?
I like working remote, but like I think there's like interactions you can have where it's like just more casual in LA,
Yeah.
and it's not necessarily all about work. Like it's easy to go hang out with someone and like not work, So I think that's kind of like a valuable part of it, you know what I mean? Just being close to everybody, and I don't know.
Yeah, I
I,
miss doing in-person sessions.
yeah, that, and I play football like with some DJs and shit, you know what I mean? So it's like that's probably like one of the main reasons I like it here is like just having like a group to play sports with, and you know
Yeah.
what I mean, like do shit on that, they're on the same time schedule as you,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
they're
yeah.
not trying to do everything on a Friday night or Saturday night, you know what I mean? It's like,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, I can get down with that. So
I guess that's the great thing about LA is that you have so many people in our industry there. Like even if it's not in dance music, it's in music in general, and our hours are all the same.
exactly. So
Whereas like when you like, let's say for instance Detroit where I live, you don't really get much of that. Everyone's kind of on that 9 to 5 grind.
9 to 5 grind, and I can imagine in winter it's probably pretty slow, but probably great for studio.
People hate life in the winter here. I love it.
Yeah, man, it's fucking freezing there, bro. Fuck.
It just started snowing today actually. But
Jesus.
I quite like the cold, and it kind of brings a different. It's the thing with that I find with LA is that it's just the same all year. Like I know it gets hotter and it gets a bit colder, but it's like pretty much you can guarantee it's the same all year. And for
Yeah,
me, like being in a situation where I'm in the same all year, I'm like it doesn't give me anything to look forward to, or it doesn't
yeah.
give me anything to like change my kind of vibe up. Um,
Think you're more like productive there.
I think I'm more productive in the UK, if I'm
Really?
honest. Yeah, I think being, to be fair, I'll be completely honest. I've been so unproductive for the last like 6 months, I would say. It's like my least unproductive time I've ever been in my whole career with
I've been a
writing.
little like that recently. Like,
It is.
there's just not that much inspiring stuff, to be honest. So
Yeah, I guess for me is like I know what I want. I know where I want to. I don't fully know where I want to go, but I know what the plan is.
Mm.
Well, I know the end goal, but now for me, it's just like working out the bits in between.
Yeah.
And the thought of it all is like, I think I'm overthinking everything.
Yeah, that can happen.
I just,
That's, I mean, you must have the same thing where your like biggest records were the ones you kind of just weren't really thinking too hard about, right? Or,
yeah, I think that's everyone's.
yeah,
I guess
that's
my
the
big,
common thing.
yeah, which when you're trying to do like work more conceptually, it's kind of tough. But it's such a weird mindset that for artists, though, right? The whole biggest, you need a big record, and that
Yeah.
pressure that we put on ourselves. It's like, do you, when do you go, do you like, what's your process when you go into the studio on just your mindset, not necessarily what you do, but like your mindset of like when you're, let's say for instance, your latest album, like I know I was talking to you in the airport and you were like, this was just a bunch of records that I had and
Mm.
that were probably never going to come out. So you just put them out as an album. I know that was probably massively a quick description of it all, but how do you get out of that mindset of, is this going to be a big record?
Yeah. So, I mean, I never like, I mean, I think there's only been like once or twice where I finished something and I knew it would do well, but for the most part, everything that's done the best for me like really caught me off guard.
Yeah.
Um, so because of that, I kind of like try to keep that ethos of like, I don't think about anything and I just go. And like I think that's why I tend to make stuff in so many different genres, is that like I don't try to limit myself to like, okay, if it's starting to sound techno, right? Like Divided Souls, then
Yeah.
that's where it's going. And like I don't try to hold that back in any way. And I kind of just wait. Like once I finish the record, I kind of let it sit for like a little while. And if I can go back and listen to it and I think it's hot, then like then it kind of like I start thinking about what I can do with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know, like because I guess I'll have a different process when I'm doing stuff for me and when I'm doing stuff for other people. So like when I do stuff for other people, it's like way more relaxed. Like I
Yeah.
actually more about like just like letting them kind of like dictate direction a little bit and let them kind of tell me what they like. And I just try and work that into what I do. But when
Purely,
it's for me, man,
sorry, is that purely like on an engineering basis or like where someone's
that's
like,
mainly as a yeah, mainly as a producer.
yeah,
Um, mainly as a producer. But yeah, I don't know. Like when it comes to stuff for myself, it's just a case of like finishing it. I play it, it goes off,
mm,
and kind of put it through the paces and like see. And
yeah,
then from there, send it to homies. If it starts going off, then we start ramping it up and like
mm.
all that shit. So
Yeah, the whole, it was weird because, and I still haven't got back into it because there's still so many DJs that aren't actually DJing because of like Europe still not fully open and things like that. But I think during COVID, we all realized how important it was to get your records played by your mates and how much that changed the whole kind of game of releasing music because there's no hype behind a record.
yeah, yeah. Another part I noticed, like I kind of just noticed this week, is like a lot of those social media channels, like minimal tech lovers and stuff. You know what I mean? Like those
Yeah.
pages, and like if like all those pages post you a lot,
Mm.
like you just start getting traction. Like
Yeah.
that Mochak dude from like Brazil. I don't know if you've seen like his videos. You know what I mean? But like if you look at who's posting the videos, they're not coming from his account. They're coming from like all those like minimal lovers, baseline lovers, like all like EDM lovers, like all those kinds of accounts.
The thing that a
Um,
lot of people don't realize as well is you pay to get on those.
yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of paid ones for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely think a combination of having your mates play records and like kind of getting on that algorithm right now is
Mm.
probably like the best kind of social mix. I don't know.
Do you find your social platforms actually make a difference of your on your streaming though?
Um, they do. but I'm like personally like a little tired of it all, you know.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so like I've kind of like, I wouldn't say take a step back, but like it's not like a focus for me anymore, like as much as making sure my Spotify streams are up.
Yeah.
So like I'll look at other people now and like they'll have way more followers than me on IG and like less plays than me per month on Spotify.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my focus now. I mean, I still active on social media all the time, but like it's just, I don't know, it's just like
It's
it
tiring.
started becoming a dangerous place for me. Yeah. Like
Yeah, man.
this is just personal, you know, like everyone's at
Yeah.
a different spot, but like all through pandemic, I didn't really feel like I like went offline, you know what I mean? If anything, I went more online. And I was streaming, I was like, you know, really active. I mean, still active in my Discord, but just a lot of it went online. And like coming out of that, I guess I felt a little burnt out
Mm.
and just trying to juggle everything at the same time. Um, yeah, it's I mean, it's still a focus, but I'm not trying to be like, I gotta post every day, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta do that. Like you really, I mean, it works, but you don't, you know what I mean? Like you could be Porter Robinson and net post and still be popular in the
Yeah.
music scene, you know?
Yeah. I
So
came to this. I literally was listening. Have you heard of a podcast called Tape Notes?
nah,
It's really interesting. It's very much on the geekier side of production, but it's this
okay.
dude that I forgot his name, Tim Kennedy or someone. Um, he sits down with producers and artists, the producers and the artists of like an album at the same time, and kind of they talk about the process. And I've just been listening more and more to them, and I came to a realization last week that like, yeah, pretty much what you just said is that at the end of the day, it only matters about the music. If you write a record that's like no one can get away from, if you know what I mean, it's just there. It's just so good that everyone has to pay attention to it. Let's say, for example, like the most recent one that I could kind of come to head is that a Craze record.
Yeah.
Like it just built so much traction that you couldn't get away from it.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't based on him having amazing socials. That wasn't based on him having a huge career beforehand. That was just purely based on the record being great. And I know there's a massive balance between like we need a social following and we need those things. So I'm not saying like just fuck it all off. But what I'm saying is like if you can take the pressure off that and stop looking at the numbers and just write great music, it will eventually come. It will all eventually come to you if you just keep
Yeah.
pushing on.
100. And like even if you're not that popular, right? Or like whatever, like I have an example now where like Solomon has been playing my record Divided Souls like
Mm.
every night basically. So I'm getting videos like every night right now. And like the record's 2 years old.
Yeah,
And like we're not promoting it to
yeah,
him. We're not promoting it really like that. Like, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's more that like I guess it's a good record and like he found it and still thinks it's playable. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
not
yeah.
like doesn't sound dated, doesn't sound whatever. So like who cares? Time is just like when it came out, like the time is just a construct, right? It doesn't really
Totally.
matter. Like if it's a good record, it's a good record. So yeah, when I see things like that, that makes me go, okay, like you know, you're doing something right because
Yeah,
like it's playable by like a fucking techno legend 2 years later. And I don't even make techno real. You know what I mean? I'm not
well,
like
yeah.
an artist.
That's what I was gonna say because it's like from what you're technically known for, like that you wouldn't cross those two worlds, but they do cross over if it works for the artist that's playing it, right?
Yeah. So for me, like, because I am producing like other shit too, it's like anything with a 4/4 kick,
Mm.
like that to me is like, I mean, that's kind of what house is to me, you know, like records with the 4/4 kick. I mean, I know like stylistically it could be different, but it's
Right.
progressive house, it's Dutch house, it's bass house, it's
Still house music.
fucking tech house. Bruv, it's all fucking house. Like we're using the same hi-hats, we're using the same drums.
Yeah,
So like I don't know. For me, that's how I define it, right? Like, and then from there, it's kind of like, does it fit in my set, you
yeah,
know? And I play Divided Souls every night, so Yeah. For me, it's that works for me. Yeah. And the thing is, I never made the record being like, oh, I need every techno guy to play this. You know what I mean? Like, really was just made out of like following a vibe
Mm.
and then sitting on it for ages. And then I finally showed one person, I think Chris Lake,
Yeah.
and he was just like, yeah, give me the WAV like
Yeah.
now. And then he played it, and then the next day Fisher's texting me, he's like, give me that now. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of like all you need to do, I guess, is make good records, and if you can get them in the hands of the right people, which is the hard bit for the young dudes, um, that's all it can be. But I know like people like Snake, they do the same thing. When he had the big record, he would like go out to Miami with USBs and be giving them out to
Yeah.
everybody. Kind of what I did back in the day, before I got on. Me
Mm.
and my mates from Australia would fly to Miami every year for WMC,
Yeah.
and we would just run around trying to get agents, trying to get managers, trying to hand out demos and everything. So
It's super important at the end of the day. And the best thing now is that we have social media, so you can literally message your favorite artist like
so much easier.
so much easier.
So
I
much
remember.
easier.
Can you remember the Black Book?
Nah.
Yeah.
Oh, the TV show?
No,
Or
so there was an industry thing called Black. I think it was like DJ Mag or Mix Mag did it, and it was called the Black Book, and it had like every artist, every record label, every like management company, every agent was in that Black Book, and you had to pay for it every year, and it would like get updated,
interesting.
and you could
You're like Yellow Pages.
literally it was yeah, and
That's
it was
sick.
like obviously before social media. It was like around when email. I think MySpace was probably around.
Yeah.
But yeah, you had to kind of go through that, and then like email you had people's email addresses and email people, and then it was just like hard. Like it wasn't as easy as it is like now. Like you can message anybody, and if they look at their DMs, they're gonna message back. I hope they do anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, a strategy could be like you film yourself playing it and the
Yeah.
crowd's going off, and you send that video in the DM
Mm.
to a big DJ. It's like kind of proof. Like, yeah, okay, maybe they hear a record, go, I don't know, might work, might not. But if you see it working, like,
Yeah.
more
And
likely to.
the amazing thing with social media now, you can run ads and you can do all of that.
Yeah.
So like, even if you got like $500, $1,000, you can like do a lot of damage with like one video. If you got one video of like, let's say for instance, like Solomon playing your record, and you haven't ever signed a record, and it's just an off chance that he's playing a record of yours, like, which happens. That's how most of our careers start. It is by that. If you can put some cash behind it, some of your savings, like that can do some serious damage. Like look at Michael Beebe. Like obviously he had solid grooves and his fucking put the work in that, but a lot of Michael Beebe's career, I would say, is based off hanging tree videos of people just playing hanging tree or him playing an after party, and like
Yeah.
the same with Salado back in the day. I know they would put so much money behind posts, and it's just a case of just being in the public eye all the time. Same with that mold check guy. He's just always there. Every time you scroll, he's there, and you can't
Always
get away from that.
It's insane. So
Can't get away from that. But then there's also it's like, how do you balance that between, because that's not being an artist, that's being a businessman or businesswoman.
yeah, you have the good song first and then work on the strategy.
Yeah, man. How was it writing the album?
It was cool. I mean, a lot of those sessions, they were like very organic, like
Yeah.
none of the songs I did on that was a situation really where it was like, you got to do this with this person because XYZ, you know what I mean? They were all things I wanted to do. And they were all songs that I made with like friends. And I think that's honestly for me the best way I work is with my friends.
Yeah.
Like I can go do random sessions, but I don't enjoy them, and every time I'm with my friends, I'm just making better music because I feel I'm more relaxed, or I feel like there's no pressure to do anything,
Yeah.
So I got one record on my album. It's called Live for the Night. It's like the R&B one. It's like, full vocal, very pop
Yeah.
produced. And that whole thing is like a freestyle. Like we
Mm.
made the beat and tracked all the vocals in like 2 or 3 hours, just because like
Nice.
four of us were like jamming out together in a studio, we're like, let's start laying this down. And that's all it was. So I think that's why I like the records I chose all have that feeling to me. Like they're sentimental to me, you know what I mean? And like they were just, it's a way to kind of bookend like a period for me, or
Yeah.
like a certain music I made for like the last X amount of years. And
Mm.
I feel like I can go forward now, like internally a bit better. So
Yeah. So was it more of like a closure where you're like, you have all these records and you were like, okay, I want to move on, but I have all of this and I want the world to hear it, rather than
yeah,
sitting down and going, I'm writing an album.
yeah. I mean, I guess because we end up. So I mean, the short story is this was all kind of meant to happen pretty much pre-pandemic.
Okay.
So like going into pandemic, if anyone was following me then, like I was on a great run. We had
Mm.
like a shit ton of, like we had a big tour we were about to
Yeah.
announce, and the album, and then it all got shut down. And like, I mean, God, I think I lost, like I had like almost $1 million worth of shows
Yeah.
canceled. So it was pretty
Sucks.
depressing, you know what I mean? Like I was pretty bummed out because I was like, I'm finally getting there. Like I'm
Yeah.
finally hitting the strides I want to hit. Everything's falling into place. Like, and then that hit. So um when that did, I was obviously bummed out, but then I was like, okay, well, if you don't get up and start doing shit, you're gonna lose it all.
Mm.
So that's why I really went into Twitch and did all that. And then coming out of that, I mean, everyone's just trying to work out what we're doing again. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
We had maybe 6 months, 8 months of just, yeah, some shows were going, some weren't.
Yeah.
Like other countries were on, other countries were off. It's like that, not the environment to drop an album anyway. And then we waited, and I mean, that's pretty much till now. It brings us till now. Like, I mean, 8 months, and then maybe another 4 or 5 months. Like, we decided, okay, let's get it back together. Let's take some records off. Let's put some records on. Like It's a Vibe on that was obviously like one of the later additions to the
Yeah. Yeah.
album. Um, but yeah, it was. I mean, we definitely hit a point like 3 months ago where I was like, "Do you still want to drop this?" And I was like, "Well, maybe no, because stylistically, everyone just cares about tech house now, and like the easy thing to do would have just been to
Make
make
tech
the same
house.
shit,
Yeah. Yeah.
sample the same vocals, and do it. That would have been the easy way out, you know." For me, it was just like, nah, I need to do this shit for me.
Yeah.
So we obviously, went back and put all the records that were meant to be on it on,
Mm.
which had come out as singles over that period of time, and then added some new ones, added the Not As Dance ones,
Yeah.
which, I mean, honestly, a lot of those decisions weren't really because of me. Like originally I had, like, it was all predominantly house
Yeah.
and techno, and I sent it to Lorenzo, and Loz was like, man, what are you doing? Like, he's like, you got so much other shit, like put
Mm.
something different on there too, you know what I mean? So it was because of him I put the R&B stuff on there. And then there's another record on there called Waiting. It's like a UK garage, like
Mm.
straight up
Yeah. Yeah.
UK garage. And like I only put that on because of Dombreski, because I sent my album to Dom, was playing him some other bits. I'm just playing him bits like, what do you like? What do you not
Yeah.
like? And he's like, what are you doing with that song? And I'm like, fucking nothing. He's like, put that on the album.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? He's like, bro, it's fire. It's like, it's fire. He's like, I would listen to that every day.
Mm.
And when the album came out like 2 weeks ago, he like was calling me. He was like, bro, you put it on, you put it on. Like he was more excited than me. It was on there. So a lot of those decisions weren't just me, you know what I mean? Like it was me bouncing back and forth with my friends, and them going, dude, you have the ability, you have the records. And like Loz's reference was like when he did his album, one of the highest streaming songs was the hip hop track that he has
Yeah.
on there. He's like, it did really well for me. And like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, it's not that deep. So
I
that's
think that's
why I kind of took that approach.
I think that's
But
the good thing about an album as well, right? It allows you to actually do what you want to do, and
yeah, I think
it doesn't
that's what
have
I
to.
read.
Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
have to all be based on the dance floor or anything else. And let's be honest, like out of all of your fans, how many of them listen to non-dance floor stuff on a regular basis? Probably every single day.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I like people know me for peak time club music, but like I didn't have songs until now I could go home and listen on in the car
Yeah.
on the way home, or like the right after party. Like I don't know. I just tried to make an album for like the whole day, not just for one part of the night. You know what I mean?
I think that's the thing. That's what we do, right? Is because the way our industry is that we write music. Why do we write music? The music realistically nowadays doesn't make us any money in the grand scheme of selling records, right? It's
Hmm.
more of a business card to get us shows.
Hmm.
So what gets us shows? The records that smash because everyone's playing them because they work in the
Yeah.
club. And then so that's all we do. We write smashers that do really well in the club that then gets us shows. So I guess writing an album allows you not to have to do that. You still have your smashes on the album, but they're just the 3-4 singles that you were going to put out anyway is throughout the year. And then
Yeah.
everything else can be the body of work to show who you actually are as a producer.
Yeah. That's how I feel, man. I guess it's just hard, like when press outlets like don't understand that. Like everything on a press end has to be like, oh, so you made a decision to do this. And
Mm.
for me, it's just like, bro, I chose records I fuck with that I made. And like it ain't that deep, you know what I mean? And like I'll go back to dropping club singles in a few months. But
Yeah.
like where I was at in my career was like, I mean, you know, I'm not like a new artist, so I
Yeah.
have been putting out club singles every year, every
Time.
month, few months. Like I had run that cycle for 5 years almost, like running that hamster wheel, and I was like, "Fuck, dude, when can I do something for me?" You know what I mean? Like, when can I just drop some shit because I like it, not
Yeah.
because it's gonna fucking be number one on Beatport, you know? So I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough one because we have to do both, right?
Yeah,
But there's very few artists that are allowed to step out of their confines of their genre,
yeah,
or
100.
or they don't have a genre, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it's just the people know what they want, right? If you go to a rock artist for a rock record, you'd go to a house artist for a house record. That's kind of what we do as human beings.
Yeah,
Um, I think I don't I personally think albums are coming back. I have a feeling that there's going to be more albums kicking around and will allow people to actually like get more into who the artist is personally. Because I think with social media and kind of streaming and Twitch and Discord and all of that is that it's actually more about becoming more personable to your fans, and your fans
yeah,
get to really know who you are.
yeah,
And
100.
you might not have as many, but you have a stronger following that's like a stronger core following. And I
For
think
me?
I just mean generally.
Oh, generally, yeah, for sure,
I
for
think
sure.
people,
I mean, I feel like I built my career like that. It's
yeah,
like I don't need the most fans. I just need like the most dedicated fans, you know?
yeah,
So
the ones that are true fans, like the ones that are actually gonna support everything you do and
100.
get it. And I think it's all very well having a massive hit record. I think you gain a lot of fans from that, but they're not necessarily true fans. They just like that one record from you.
Yeah.
But I think building foundations is really much more important than one hit record. Would you say you've had a hit record?
I mean, not like do it to it, but I think I've had hit records for my scene, you
Mm,
know? Like, I mean, at one point, Fly Kicks was probably, I mean, it still is almost the number one selling night bass record.
yeah,
Um, if you look at AC and Loz's profiles, because the original song's theirs, I mean, it still sits up in their top 5 tracks for both of those
yeah,
artists. So that, I mean, I feel like Wet probably was pretty big for our scene. Um, So yeah, I mean, I don't think I had hits, but I think I had like underground hits, you know.
Did you notice a change in your career after those records?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, especially coming up in the time that Night Bass was starting, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
being part of that whole spark, because I mean, we'd been friends with Aaron for like years.
Yeah.
So it never seemed like, it wasn't like everyone sat down one day and we were like, let's all team up, you know what I mean, and do something new. It was like shit that I mean, if you looked at like the fidget scene and shit, like when
Yeah.
Jack Beats came out of that and Sinden, it's basically like after a gap, the next evolution of that. And that's why you had AC leading that charge, because he was in that circle back then with Sinden, Jack Beats, Drop the Lime, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're all like they had him and Drop the Lime at Trouble and Bass.
Mm.
And so it never seemed that weird to just all be hanging out and doing shit together. But being part of that initial thing and having like a big record to kind of go with it. I mean, I feel like I got away with murder almost, because like half the dudes had way more output, way more
Yeah.
original records, and I kind of just skated in with a remix. And like I think I did 2 singles on Night Bass, like, or one with AC, and then I did like a 2-track EP. But like, you know what I mean? It was really all fly kicks. I could have just done fly kicks and probably would have got the same. But yeah, it's almost like getting away with murder. Like I, at the same time, it's like it could have been my original record. You know what I mean? And it could have maybe made me more money. Maybe could have gone further, but it maybe couldn't have. I don't really know. But
You never know, do
um,
you? That's the amazing thing about this industry. 90% of it's fucking luck.
yeah, exactly. But I think the cool thing is that like even for a remix, like AC and those guys like went back and like looked after me on the splits and shit. So
Totally.
that was
Totally.
cool. Yeah,
It's
they
amazing
didn't have to.
it's amazing what that crew's doing right now. Well, it's
They're
like
so cool, man. They're solid, bro. Like I mean, like Loz is killing it. I mean, Loz has always killed it. I think it's just a matter of time, right?
I think the the
Um,
the, the transition between what Loz has done from being huge in the UK and then kind of that hustle to come over to the States and kind of build it here in the States and now where he's at, if you know what I mean, it's amazing.
yeah, yeah, it's cool, man. But I mean, that and like, who else? You got like Taiki. Taiki's always doing cool shit.
Mm.
Like all the dudes are pretty like, whether they're like famous or not, they all make like pretty inspiring shit. Like
Yeah.
pretty like shit that
The brand
that's
itself as well is doing like the whole was it Charmy and Night versus Night Base or whatever the Charmy's label is it Confession?
yeah,
What is it?
dude. I feel like that was my idea. Because
Okay.
like there was like a night 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. It was like before pandemic, and like it was like me, Marla, Charmy, and AC, and we were just like having like drinks after the show together. And I was like, you know, it'd be crazy. You should do Night Bass versus Confession and do
Yeah.
like AC versus Charmy, me versus Marla. You know what I mean? And just do all back to back. And I mean, I'm actually like so stoked they did it, and they invited me to go on the tour with them. It's just that like
Couldn't.
hard right now, you know what I mean, when you're trying to do your thing, and you know
Totally.
what I mean. But I was stoked to see that happen, and like, yeah, I felt like I was part of, because at the time I was one of the only artists that was releasing on both labels,
Yeah.
so it just made sense to me, you know what I mean. And they had dropped their collab record, like Charmy and AC, and I was like, such a no-brainer idea, like this is a
Totally.
layup, you should do this. So it's cool that it came together in the end, and like the venues looked amazing, the shows looked amazing.
Shows looked
I wish I could
unreal.
have played them, like, yeah.
Yeah, they looked
So
unreal. It is amazing, especially something that big that's kind of grown organically and kind of spit and sawdust. It's like it started as like a ground up label and kind of
yeah,
that now, and it's doing crazy things. And we've all seen it grow, if you know what I mean. We've seen the artist grow from it. Um, it was kind of, even when I was in my Dirty Bird days, it was the same. Like you saw it slowly grow and grow and grow to the kind of to the level where it's at the same point as Dirty Bird.
yeah, I think that was always one of the labels that was like the biggest inspiration to like everyone
Yeah,
from Night Bass, is like the way their community is, the way the artists like hang out, and like
yeah,
I think we took a lot of that energy from Dirty Bird
mm.
for sure.
Yeah, community is so important, especially with a label.
One-
It's just
100.
having the right people around you, right? It's just
That and having the right person in charge. Like, AC is like a one of a kind dude. Like, I don't think if me or Loz had started the brand, it would be
yeah,
as successful as what it is, right? Like, he's he's personable, like he's super, like, I don't know, he's one of the nicest fucking people I know. It's just, that's the kind of person I think that, like, the success is because of him, you know what I mean? Like, he's the reason why Nightbase is successful. Like, as much as the artists and like whatever we've done to contribute, at the core it's AC Slater. And
yeah,
like, if he wasn't the person he was, like, it might not be where it is, because he's just one of those people where he gives everybody the fucking time of day, bro.
yeah,
Like, it doesn't matter. He's so nice and like unselfish in that way, that like people like gravitate towards that and they want to do stuff for that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I would do almost anything for Aaron. So just
Yeah,
because I know he would get my back. You know what I
he
mean? Like,
do
he
the
would,
same to you as well.
yeah, and he wouldn't take that shit for granted. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
he's just one of those dudes, bro. Like, I think you see it with everybody around him, like Lars, Taiki, Sinden, Jack Beats. Like, we all fucking love him because of how he's just been there for you as a friend
yeah.
for years and years and years before anything. It's like,
Mm.
he's just a real person, man. So
Yeah,
I
it's
think
so
AC.
much. It's so important that as well, and I think it can actually
Yeah.
get lost in the success of something, in everything, in anything, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be based on music. Is everything. When something becomes more successful, more money gets involved, and then that's when people kind of fall out and it gets a bit shit. But I think if your core foundation is as a human being is to be there for people is so much more important than worrying about the money.
Yeah, I mean, he's never changed. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
he got successful and didn't change. So
which is key.
that's sick, man. Like, I'll always wish the best for Nightbase and want to be part of it and do what I can and want to be involved. So
Yeah. When
yeah,
was
it's cool.
the transition for you where you were like, because it's like it for anyone where you came up on Night Base, and I know
Mhm.
you still do stuff with them and you still support them, but when the transition where you're like, I need to do something myself, I need to kind of build something
Yeah.
myself. What was that?
I think it was around the time we started our own label.
Yeah,
Um, it made me go, okay, if you're gonna start your own label, like, you need to be putting your shit out on your own label.
yeah,
So it was never a conscious like I got to move away. It
mm,
just felt like we were all growing, like we'd all come up together, and now we're at a point where we were all growing our own careers. Like, even with like Laws now, you know what I mean? Like, he hasn't done anything on Nightbase for a while, but not because anything went wrong, because
yeah,
we're all at a point where we're trying to be like our own like ecosystem or our own
totally.
artists. So I don't think there was a point. I think I remember having a conversation with AC. We did like Night Base City in Chicago, which was the first time it was like a festival stage with all of us.
Yeah,
So it was like AC, me back to back Laws, like everyone from the label. And then we were discussing like doing one in LA, doing more, right? And I think the point I realized, like, not in a bad way, but it was just like when the agents couldn't agree on anyone's fees,
yeah,
and I wasn't part of the conversation, but I was like, Aaron, what the fuck happened? Like, I want to play that shit. And they're like, yeah, so like budget wise, like everyone's too big now. Like,
yeah,
you guys got too big. Like,
yeah.
we can't really, not that they couldn't afford it, but it's just like economically,
Mm.
we can't make everyone happy, right? Like, you'll either like not be getting what your team wants you to get, or like we won't be able to put you on. You know what I mean? Like,
Which for anybody that's not listening, like we can only play certain markets a certain amount of times a year. And if LA is your biggest market where you earn the most money and you have the biggest fan base, taking a show that's gonna be like half your fee is like a big kick in the teeth for your agents and your management and kind of everyone. Although as artists, we'd probably generally just do it because it's gonna be the best party we're gonna play. It's like
yeah,
still that like, okay, we got to think business talk here.
exactly. Like what you want and what makes sense business wise, they don't always match up at a certain point.
Totally.
I guess it's a good problem to have because it means you're growing. But the bad thing is like, yeah, you can't always do everything on some homey stuff anymore.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess as you try to get bigger as an artist, you want to be like headlining, you want to be
Totally.
moving up festival lineups. And like part of that is kind of breaking out of the ecosystem that has a natural order to it, right? Like I would never ever dare to ask AC like to headline above him on a night based show. Do you know what I mean? Just like you probably wouldn't do that to Claude.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, how do you keep going forward, but also, kind of be able to, I don't
Grow.
know, not, yeah. How do you grow without stepping on any toes? Like it's not possible. Like you're gonna have to do something that isn't going to work out for someone else at some point, right? So it's not even like a malicious thing. It's just like
It's business. It's life.
business. Yeah, just business. So
At the end of the day, there comes a point in everything that you kind of have to look after yourself. And I know it sounds really selfish, but it's not selfish. It's just life. It's you have to, like, you have your needs in your life. You have certain things, like AC has family. He has to look after them. Like, we all have things that are prioritized over anybody else, and that's ourselves. And that's not a selfish move at all. It's just how it is in everything.
yeah, I agree. I think like the people that you really end up working with long term are the people that don't get like they don't get feelings over business things. You know what I mean? They're really good at keeping them separate. Like it's got nothing to do with like how much I hate or like you. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
and at the end of the day, like I still go to AC's house and go hang out with his daughter, like whatever. Like, because that's what is really important. You know what I
So
mean?
much more important.
Not whether you can like support me on a show or blah blah blah. Like, bro, and that's the thing. I'll still go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I'm not playing, bro, you probably catch me there anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I think that's the most important thing, bro. It's like your
Yeah,
mate's supporting you no matter what. Like,
I love that. There is something about just supporting your friends no matter what, and whether it's
hell yeah.
business. And I think there's a lot of things in this industry where it can all stop. Like there is strict business relationships where you are strictly in a relationship with somebody for the business, and then there's the relationships that started before you all got big, and to see everyone get big is the nicest feeling. Like, I don't know about you, but the one thing I want to do is become so successful where I could bring all my friends along with me and make them all super successful. That's literally my goal. Like,
Yeah, me too.
and
Me
like
too.
make and be able to get all my friends rich, if you know what I mean. Like, the reason why I want to earn more money in my shows is so that my team can earn more money. That's like, it's there comes a point where when you have good people around you, it's just about making sure everyone else around you is doing well.
Yeah, man. I like during the pandemic, that was like an important thing for me. Is like I still paid my team, even
Yeah.
if it was like off streaming revenue or something, right? Just making sure like everybody was like, able to eat so that like at the end of it, like everybody would still be, you
Yeah.
know, there. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I agree. You want everybody else to be able to eat better as well. So
Yeah, I think there's a money talks in the grand scheme of things, but also it's like it's just an extra bonus on top,
yeah.
really. It doesn't it drives some relationships, but the relationships that aren't based around money, but then you can kind of help people out with the money. Just it's just nice. It's a nice incentive when people aren't expecting.
Honestly, the best thing about money for me was the ability to not have to do terrible shit anymore.
Yeah. What do you
Just
mean?
just so we could survive. Like take bad shows I didn't want to take or do
Yeah.
remixes I didn't want to remix. Like I used to do everything just to like,
Just to make
make
money.
sure we'd have money in the bank. Yeah. And now that I'm, making more money, like like I can finally like I right before pandemic was maybe like a year before the pandemic started was when I really felt like, oh, now I'm making decisions because like they're what I think I should be doing in my career, not what I got to do, or I'm not going to make it till like next month. You know what I mean? Or 6 months down the line. Like,
Yeah.
but that's when I really started having way more fun, honestly. Like, I mean, I always had fun, but I really felt like a weight lifted when I could just say no to every single fucking remix. And like,
Yeah.
not for any other reason other than like, that's not, I don't get inspired doing remixes unless like it's something I was already going to do. Right. Like, um, but after Fly Kicks, like I was getting fucking remix offers every single fucking day for like crazy amounts of money. And I said no to all of them. I think the only one I took was like DJ Snake, the Made in France thing, like
Yeah.
Snake Charming, that's the song. But I did that for free.
Mm.
I asked for no money for that because that's like something I wanted to do. Like I don't mind not getting paid if that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
But I don't like when I have to do something that I don't want to do. And then
Well,
I'm just like, well, I need the check, I need the check, I need the check. So I'm gonna force out a shit remix that I'm never gonna play, just gonna bury it after this. You know what I mean? Like I hated doing that shit. Like I hated it so much. So yeah, you pretty much won't catch me do a remix ever again. I don't think.
I did 2 of those during lockdown.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'll do them. Like I'm remixing a song right now, but because I wanted to do it. So I jacked it the original offline and I started flipping it. But you know, that's just like for me,
What
for
you
the
want to do.
sets.
Yeah, there is that thing, isn't it? But I think I don't know about you, but there was a point in my career where I looked very short term and didn't
Mm,
look at the like the bigger picture. That's like, okay, this is like 2-3 grand for a remix. Like right now, 2-3 grand would be great. But if I, in the grand scheme of things, if I look back at it, like 2-3 grand in 5 years' time is not worth it right now. But I think it's just very easy in the moment to be like, yeah, I need that money, so let's
mm,
just do it. And it's definitely not worth it in the grand
nah,
in the long term at all.
nah.
But I think it's so
It-
hard to see that when you're a new artist or when you're growing, because hey, 2 grand's a lot of money.
Hell yeah. Like, nah, you need it. But that's the thing, when you're new and you're not willing to do like all those things, like I'm not sure you'll make it.
Yeah.
Like you gotta scrap. Like you gotta get scrappy with it. Like you gotta be willing to do shit you don't want to do. Like if you're gonna hold the bar too high and like turn your nose down at things, like I'm not really sure you have what it takes. You know what I mean? Like, because think about like it, you got to have this certain amount of like tenacity and motivation inside yourself to like be okay with all the traveling, the late nights,
Yeah.
the like, you know what I mean? Like this, there's a certain point where like this isn't that fun anymore. And like, you know what I mean? To be able to sit in the studio for 8 hours a day, you know, to be able to then pack your bags, travel all night, like blah blah blah. Like you got to get gritty. You know what I mean? Like you're never gonna go like unless you even like maybe a craze, right? And then you go straight from like nothing to like a jet or some shit like that, right? But that's never really like
How many people
gonna
really do that? Maybe one every 2 years, 3 years, not even that.
exactly. Exactly. The reality is you'll be putting out a lot of records that don't get recognized.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot of remixes just to survive,
Mm.
and you'll be traveling like fucking shit. And you'll be up, you'll be taking the cheapest flights you can at the
Yeah.
worst times just to make the most amount of money on a show.
Mm.
And nobody will see that. You know what I mean? They'll just see you there partying, having a good time. They'll assume you're getting paid a lot and that life's
Yeah.
great. But like they don't see all the other shit. So
It's funny because obviously you're similar to me where you're not from America.
mm,
And do you have a green card?
nah, I'm still on visas.
Still on visas, so your tax is the same as mine.
Yeah, it's
Although
pretty
you'll be
nutty.
yeah, it's pretty rough. But it's really funny, like when you first get going in the industry and you are like, oh, you're gonna get 3 grand for this show, and you're like, damn, this is a fuck ton of money. Like this is the most money I've ever had in my life doing a show. And then you're like, okay, then you take all the splits out, and then you take all the tax out, and then you take all your travel out, and you're like left with like $400, and you're like, still great that I'm earning $400, but from 3 grand to $400, you're like, fuck, where did this go? And that never ends. That
No.
never that never ends at all.
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
Is and you're just like, the more money you get, your expenses, I don't know about you, but for me, my expenses generally stay the same. So there comes a threshold where you get to that level where you're like, okay, I'm actually making really good money doing this when you get to a certain fee level. But
Yeah.
fuck me, like it takes time.
Yeah.
Takes
So I definitely
hustle.
have hit that point, but then it was like, okay, like you need to start bringing more people on the road now for things, right? So now I travel with a TM and a photographer.
Yeah.
So like my expenses almost went up
Old.
again.
Yeah.
But you're right, there is a threshold where that's gonna end, right? Like hopefully by the time you get everything sorted. And I mean, not everybody needs that extra stuff on the road, right? They're just like the extra frills for me because like it takes a little bit of pressure off like me having to worry about content on socials, and it takes the pressure off me having to worry about like travel and all that other shit so I can do other things, right? Like
Does your TM book all your flights, does all your advancing and everything as well?
yeah, I'm pretty lucky that everybody around me does almost everything now.
Mm.
Like yeah, I mean my label is running itself.
Yeah.
My merch is running itself, like my assistant's upstairs like packing merch now.
Yeah.
And then we have TM photographer, like everything's kind of running itself, which is great. But it's also because you know I'm trying to like I could probably do more business
Mm.
than most other DJs, you know, outside of music too. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of my team steps in to kind of help me because I bring opportunities on that end too, to them. So
Yeah.
that's why they probably do maybe more than other artists
Well,
probably get from their teams, you
I
know?
think it's important to have that set up if you're interested in doing more things, where a lot of artists aren't. A lot of artists are just purely interested in doing straight up music. Whereas
Yeah, yeah,
what you're
exactly.
doing with NFT stuff and kind of all of that, like it's extra money.
Yeah, my team eats off everything I work on.
Yeah.
So whether it's like crypto stuff, whether it's music stuff, like they're kind of like help me execute a lot of things I need done, or like we'll tee up the meetings with people I need to talk to. So yeah, everything's cool. Like, you know, we obviously have operations in gaming and in NFTs and crypto,
Mm.
and it really just allows me to be able to like bring in more money and bring in more business on every end, you know?
Yeah. Just more creative. Do you work
Yeah,
do you work on the creative of everything?
yeah. I mean, like there's certain things like with cover art, right? Like I have like three guys, and the main guy is like Nick Copper, and like I like his style anyway. You know what I mean? So like I kind of give him a bit of creative freedom because he's also
Yeah.
creative, and I just approve everything as well. You know what I mean? So as long as I get final approval before it goes out, then
Yeah.
like that's all I need really.
Mm.
But
When in your career was it that you got everyone doing everything you wanted, which allowed you the space to do what you want to do? Because there's a point, isn't there, when you're kind of coming up where you can't afford to pay people and you have to do it
yeah,
yourself. What was it, the switch for you, apart from just earning money? When was it for you where you were like, I need other people to kind of help me with this?
it was now actually
Yeah.
like the last few months.
Mm.
Um, like I guess I'd done pretty well off NFTs and crypto,
Yeah.
and I'm doing well off my DJ fee.
Yeah.
And my team could kind of see like it was impossible for me to like
Do everything.
maintain both. Yeah, like I think if people are following me online, it's probably part of the reason they're not seeing me online as much is because I'm out there like taking meetings. Like I had like, you know, a whole week of meetings the other week with like people from psilocybin companies all the way to Netflix show producers. Um, and I think my team could just see like, hey, he's not like he's not like he's not going to be able to keep both these up.
Yeah.
And I have the money to bring on more people,
Mm.
so it just kind of made sense. You know what I mean? It's like if I can earn more money, if I can pay someone to do that part of the job and then go and earn more money overall, then that's what business is, like good business is, right? Like Amazon started with Jeff Bezos, and now the guy
Yeah.
has like millions of employees. Like
Yeah.
It's important to be able to grow your team with people, you know, and like bring people like delegate tasks, you know, like you don't have to like physically do everything. If you're like a good operator, you can like manage it all, right? So yeah, just delegating tasks,
I think,
simple stuff.
yeah, I think it's also that thing that's just like music is if you need a guitar section in a record, you go find a good guitarist. You don't try and learn the guitar. Yeah.
100%. Like, yo, that's like the biggest quote. Like, that's like basically what Quincy Jones said in
Yeah.
an interview once. And like that shit stuck with me forever.
Mm.
Because like you will never be the best piano player. You'll never be the best guitar player. If you're not like already on your way there, like there's no chance. So, you know,
We don't have enough time to do.
yeah.
Well, we do have enough time, but we have to make time. And by making time, it means that we either take time out of life that we want to do doing something else, or we're just so fixed on doing something other things that it doesn't get there really.
Yeah, 100. I read this thing and it was like in one person's lifetime, they only really have enough time to be good at one thing.
Yeah.
And it's the people that are good at more than one thing usually became good at that one thing first and then started doing the other things. So like if you think you can be good at 2 or 3 things in life, like it's just not going to be possible. Like
That's
you need to.
the thing I struggle with the most is that everything I want to do so many things, and
Same.
like constantly always want to do so much shit, and it actually affects everything else. And I called Ryan the other day and was like, dude, I just can't do all of this. There's just so much going on that I'm like, I just can't carry on with it.
Yeah.
And it affects the one thing that actually is the reason why we're doing what we're doing, and that's making music.
Making music. Yeah, exactly. But I also think that's a great trait to have, honestly. Like it's problematic in that, like, you know, you could get stuck in a place where you're not really accomplishing all that much. But honestly, like now's the time to try. Like, right, like where before you get old, before you like 50, 60, 70, like, you know, you can't really move around as much or whatever. Like now's the time to YOLO life and like try every fucking thing. And like I try to live like that, like in general. And I think that's why like some things worked out for me, you know, like because I just took the risk. And like I don't know, I like obviously like this isn't the type of thing, like please whoever's watching this don't take this as like actual advice, but like at the end of the day, if you invest a bunch of money somewhere and you lose it all, right, like okay, mentally that could fuck you, but you're only really letting yourself do that to yourself, right? If you go, look, 40 grand's nothing, I can fucking earn that back,
Yeah,
or like whatever, and like power through that initial sadness because you'll be sad, but like at the end of the day, it's not like, you know what I mean, like nothing, like what's the worst that can happen if you're already not in a great situation, you know what I mean, unless you're in a place where you had $20 million and lost it all, right? Like I'm talking about if you're like just regular, why not take a fucking stab, you know, like if you don't feel life is really going the way you want it to go, just fucking roll the dice.
But I also think it's all I don't really know what the word is. But it balances out, right? If you've earned 20 million, you can earn another 20 million. If you earn 10 grand, you can earn another 10 grand. If you've written 10 records, you can go write another 10 records if one of those records doesn't hit. Like, it's just that taking the risk that I think I can get stuck in the rut of like not taking the risks because it's too short term for me. Like at the end of the day, we all know how long things take. And if you're going to spend 50 grand on an investment, it doesn't necessarily come back into like hundreds of thousands of dollars next week. It's a process. Sometimes it does. Sometimes you're lucky, right?
Yeah.
But it's very rare that happens. And I think it can be very easy for me to be like, no, I just got to keep doing what I'm doing. But then realizing in the 5 years down the line, if you just keep doing what you're doing, sometimes it actually doesn't pay off, and it's not what you shouldn't keep doing what you're doing. You need to change. You need to do something different.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree that like, you know, for me, I'm not gonna like throw away my music career because I've spent most of my life working towards it, you know.
But also you love it.
Yeah, and I love it, you know, like it's not something I ever did for money, so it's fine. But taking risks in life, not I mean, definitely don't take risks with money, you know what I mean? Like if you only have a certain amount of money, like don't fucking
Yeah,
YOLO it all. But what I more meant was like risks in life, right? Like it's like if you're too focused on having a plan B, like plan A never gonna work.
totally.
Like I almost live my life with no plan B now because I'm like, plan A is gonna work. There's
Yeah,
only one plan. You know what I mean? And that's to make all this shit work and be rich, like from doing it.
yeah,
And I don't know, when you just live with a backup plan or you live with this idea that like, you know, like, nah, I don't know. I'm a bit too like, I'm a bit too stubborn like that sometimes. Like personally, like I'll just
mm,
be so headstrong at like, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. So like, it almost doesn't matter if I fail or if people think I'm an idiot or whatever. You
yeah,
know what I mean? Because like internally, like I just needed to do that. You know,
yeah.
so
No, I respect that a lot, and I'm similar. I would say in the last like 6 months, I've mentally not been like in the right mindset where it's like been more of a like a negative mindset where it's like, fuck, what if all this goes? Like, I have nothing. Like, my, I had the only qualification I've had outside of music is I was a lifeguard.
damn, you're a lifeguard.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And
That's crazy.
I worked in a fish and chip shop. Like there's like literally nothing else I could fall back on, which means that like I have to make this work.
Yeah.
Um, but sometimes it can be it's a it also for me, and I don't know about you, there's also days where I'm like, fuck, that's scary that there's nothing else. Like I'm fucked. If this goes to shit, I'm fucked. And
The scarier thing for me about music is like it's subjective.
yeah,
You know, like there are songs that are probably really big songs that like people don't think are hit songs. What you
yeah,
know what I mean? Like it's not there's no criteria that says this is a hit song, that isn't a hit song, that isn't. Like it's super subjective. So like it's one of those things. It's not like going to work on a like construction site where like the more time you put in, you can see
yeah,
physically what you're doing. Like
yeah, yeah,
the proof is in front of you. Like in this industry, like sometimes the shit you build like doesn't get seen for years and years and years, you know, and like sometimes the records you think are good are trash. Sometimes records you think are trash are good. Like there's no it's a bit like just shooting into a fucking pond. You know what I mean? And hoping you hit a fish.
100%. And I think also it's now there's so many more ways people listen to music than
Yeah.
buying a vinyl or buying a CD or downloading a record off Beatport. Like there's so many outlets. So everything's kind of spread out to a certain extent. And you have like powers at those streaming services, powers at those download services that control what's going to be a hit and what's not.
Yo, exactly. I mean, that's the subjectivity thing, right? Like
Yeah.
you might have written a fucking hit record and everyone around you thinks it's a hit. But if that one person at Spotify controlling playlist like doesn't agree, then yeah, you don't
Mhm.
you just gotta move on.
We've,
Like
we've all had that
kind of
on a
yeah.
monthly basis, right? Like
Yeah.
we've all got records that well, we release records because we think they're going to do well. We don't release records thinking they're going to do shit. So we have I can't speak for you, but I have expectations when I'm going to release a record that it's going to do pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Same.
You get a bunch of feedback saying this is a fucking banger. Your mates that will tell you the honest opinion, they're like, yeah, this is a banger. Your fans are like on social media, yeah, this is a banger. Comes out on Spotify, Apple, Amazon. They don't give a fuck about it. And you're like,
Yeah.
damn, it's cold.
Yeah. That's probably the worst part about living in this era, honestly, is that like, you know, your visibility is at the end of the day very centralized in a few hands. You know, and I mean, there's outliers to that, obviously, like there's exceptions to
Yeah,
the rule, but it's a tough grind, man. Like that is making music is the easy part
yeah,
to me. It's everything else that is the challenge, you know, like because I spent like the good early part of my career and not doing shows, not like, you know what I mean? I was just making shit in my bedroom. So making music has never been the hard part for me in a way. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of always been the sort of like the easiest stuff. And
Yeah.
like actually getting it out there, having to promote it, having to like I don't know, just like think of all those techniques like we said earlier, like with paying for Instagram pages or blah blah blah, paying for posts. Like you got to out strategize
Yep.
everyone else around you. Like it's got nothing to do with like, are you doing good marketing? It's like, is your marketing better than theirs? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's the worst thing about it is like, as much as people say like you can't compare yourself or you can't get competitive or can't, you know, unfortunately you're forced to, you know what I mean? Because like there is a running order on the Spotify playlist and the song at number one does get more streams.
Yeah.
It's maths. Like,
Yeah.
so I don't know. It's kind of one of those things like you're being told one thing, but they're not, that's not how they treat you, bro. Like at all. So
Not at all. It's like everything. At the end of the day, we want to be successful, and how do we get there?
yeah.
And it's the question. It's on this podcast. Like you're you're the 103rd episode, and
Hell yeah.
like you have to keep going. But now, like even with this podcast, like with my team, is that like we're like, okay, we've done a lot of fucking episodes. We've got a lot of really fucking good interviews or conversations. I don't really like to call them interviews because it's more of a conversation about life. But it's like, how do we then get this to the masses? Because there's a certain level that we can, with our following, get it to. And there's so many people that I know would benefit from listening to this podcast and would want to listen to this podcast. But then it's, how do you get there? How do you get from all of the like every other podcast out there? There's fucking millions of them, and this isn't necessarily the best podcast on the internet. I know it's not, but you can guarantee that there's a lot more people out there that would want to listen to it. They just don't have a fucking clue about it.
Yeah. 100%, man. I actually think that's a problem that small business owners, man.
Everything, yeah.
Like I can't imagine. Like I'm seeing like old ass people running small businesses trying to do TikToks. You know what I mean? Like just because they feel pressured to have to
Yeah.
do something to get viral, to get their product out, to get their business name out. Like, so yeah, I feel like it's kind of like everybody's struggling, and you're kind of seeing all this sort of like just people just. I mean, it's just being extreme, right?
Yeah.
Like it's doing the craziest dance when you're DJing, so everybody watches and reposts that video. I mean, like people like Salvatore Ganache, like a great example where like the dude is not like, he's a pretty smart dude, you know what I mean? Like he's not like
he knows what
like
he's
it's yeah, exactly. It's like very programmed in a way, you know. And but the trick is, I mean, that's the magic trick, isn't it? To make it seem like it's not. Like
and I think also there's a lot of people that, a lot of us aren't like that, right? There's characters in all walks of life, and like look at Fish. Let's say, for instance, like Fish is he's a character, and
yeah,
like I wouldn't put you and I in that same category where we can be that type of person.
nah. But the thing with his is it's a lot less uncalculated. Like that's actually how he is. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
not saying that other people aren't actually how they are, but like, you know, you can see when someone's been more calculated at how they're going to roll out their career, how they're going to roll out a song, how they're going to do that. Like, man, for as long as I've known Fish, he's just been the same fucking idiot. Like, really, like he's that dude. Yeah, like he really is that dude. So like, I don't really mind that, right? Like,
I think it's authenticity. Authenticity is, everyone sees through it eventually.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't even mind the calculated thing because I understand where people are coming from. It's like if you don't have that much, like, not saying that people don't have no personality, but if you're the kind of person that is maybe like naturally awkward, right? Like coming up with a mask and a gimmick, like so that you can actually get those eyes and get their attention. I understand why people would do that. You know what I mean? Like personally, it's not for me. Yeah, but like in order to get attention now and the quickest way possible, okay, if I was going to start a new name tomorrow, yeah, you probably wouldn't see my face, or I would be doing something that's like so stand out, you would see me, right? Like, I mean, it's the same kind of like with Timmy Trumpet, like right now, where it's like, you know, has a whole like smash the bottle on his head thing, and You know what I mean? It's like cues from like Steve almost,
Yeah.
where it's like throwing a cake, like it's like the entertainment factor, the showmanship, and all that shit. Like the wow factor, like the attention grabbing factor. Like, yeah, I'm not mad at people that do that at all. Like, because I understand, like,
I
how else
respect
do you
it.
fucking get looked at right now?
Mm,
Like, you know what I mean?
yeah. I
Like,
respect
if I
it.
was coming out, yeah, I actually just respect it more because I don't have the energy to constantly be like that. Like, I only have the energy to be me. You know what I mean? Like, fuck, bro. Like, having to do anything else is just like I'm already fucking running thin. So
It's always been around. I think people are like, this is a current day thing, but it's always been there. Like, go back to like the old punk days with the old punk bands. It was exactly the same. Like, what crazy shit can we do to like make sure that everyone knows about us? Like, how do we get on the front page of every newspaper? Like, how do we do this? It's always been around.
yeah, hell yeah. When rappers climb on scaffoldings and shit, or jump
Exactly.
off balconies, like Travis Scott, Uzi Vert. I mean, they're doing it because it's a headline, you know.
Yeah.
So
And yeah, I think it just needs specific people to do that, or a specific business idea. And I do respect it. I'm not always in love with it, because I'm like, we're in the fucking music industry, and there are parts of me that's like, fuck's sake, guys, like, just fucking write good music. But that is the business, right? It's like,
yeah, it's not for me personally, but like, you know what? Like, at least those people, like, at least the people that are doing it, like, they have a respect for people like us too. You know what I mean?
totally, totally,
I mean,
man.
I'm sure there's some that don't, but all the ones I know that are like kind of a bit more characters and stuff, like they're always like DMing me or texting me or like saying some shit. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
they don't they don't discredit what we do because, like, I don't know, like,
because we're not the same.
I feel like, yeah, I feel like we're the producers that kind of these new ideas kind of spawn from. You know
Mm.
what I mean? Like, I mean, I feel like in my career I've had so many like sounds or ideas or things jacked from me. You know what I mean? Like, but I don't know. I guess that's if like if you're the producer's favorite producer, like, type scenario. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I kind of been in a little bit of that category,
Yeah,
and
I
that's
think
not so bad.
it's not bad. I think it can be sometimes quite frustrating when everyone's playing your records and you're not playing the shows. That, like, there comes a point in that career, at the beginning of your career, more so, is where when everyone's playing your records and you're not there. But that's also the start of the career. And I think when people copy your records, I think it's the biggest form of flattery, really, because we're the ones that are coming up with the record ideas, and realistically, we can come up with plenty more. It's just
Same.
we've just got to work for it, and we got to push in the studio for it, and we're the ones that allow other artists to copy that. At the end of the day,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like, I always found it flattering, so it was fine. I mean, it is annoying, like you said, to not get, like, I had a situation in Vegas where I was playing the same day as Snake in one
mm.
casino, and Snake was playing the other. And at the end of my set, basically got in trouble for playing my records. And Snake is sending me videos of him at the other club, like playing my song. And I
What?
couldn't play my songs at this. Yeah, it
Why?
was.
What? Fuck those people, whoever said that.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes back to, yeah. I mean, that's when I really realized, like, okay, being a producer's favorite producer, like, it's all good and all, but like, you really need to have a name. You know what I mean?
Have
Once
to.
you have a name, like, nobody's saying shit to you anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's when I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna focus on that, like, just building my name.
You have to.
So
It's so important. You've got to look after you, man. Got to.
yeah,
Mate, I'm
100.
about to piss my pants. So let's wrap
Oh,
this
gee,
motherfucker up.
yeah, man.
Before we leave, is what have you got coming up?
Shit, we got like Ultra in a few weeks, so I'm probably just working towards that. And we got a new single coming out, which I held off the album because I felt like it was going to get lost on there.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing, I guess, with the album, a lot of people kind of expecting me to be like off the radar for a
Yeah.
little bit, but like again, that really was a book end for me, and now I can like start rolling out all the shit I want to roll out. So yeah, I expect more new music.
Amazing.
Yeah, so the next one will be around Ultra, and we'll start promoting that and then just work on the set.
Cool,
So
man. Thanks
Yeah,
for coming
dude.
on, man. It's been good to chat.
Thanks for having me, bro. That was cool.
Yeah. Peace out, man. Keep safe. See you soon.
Hell yeah. I'll see you soon, bro.
Bye.
Later.